The captive. Elena Ruiz woke to the smell of iron and the sound of dripping fluid. Her head throbbed. Cold metal pressed into the bare skin of her back. She tried to move, but the restraints cut that thought short. Thin bands of alien alloy pinned her wrists, ankles, and chest to a slab that glowed faintly beneath her. The light was not for her comfort. It was a scanner, humming with energy, analyzing every molecule of her body. Shapes loomed above her. Not human shapes, angular silhouettes, tall and insectal. Their limbs bent wrong, their eyes were lidless pools of dark, and their voices crackled like static when they spoke. Elena had heard the name of their kind whispered among prisoners before, Xyrr Dominion. An empire of vivisectors, conquerors, tyrants. One leaned over her and pressed a device to her temple. The world flared white-hot. Elena bit down a scream, but it forced its way out anyway. Pain surged through her skull, tearing into memories, dragging them to the surface without her consent. She saw her mother's face, her brother's laughter, the smell of coffee in her small earth apartment, snatched and devoured by alien minds. The Xyrr clicked in satisfaction. Another stepped forward, unfolding a needle from its wrist. Liquid gleamed inside, an amber venom. The needle slid into Elena's arm. The fluid burned its way through her veins, setting every nerve alight. Her back arched against the restraints. Her throat went raw from screaming. The torture was not meant only to hurt. It was meant to measure. The Xyrr studied the electrical storms rippling through her body, recorded the biochemical chaos, compared it to the data of hundreds of other species that had already broken. But Elena did not break. Not at first. Her mind wavered between fury and despair, between curses spit through clenched teeth and desperate prayers she no longer believed in. She thought of Earth, of humanity, of how utterly alone she was out here in the dark. A single girl stolen from a convoy, reduced to a specimen. The aliens increased the intensity. Psychic pulses tore through her consciousness like waves of knives. Her heart stuttered. Her lungs burned. Blood vessels burst under her skin. And at last, her body gave out. Elena Ruiz died. The restraints loosened automatically as her vitals flatlined. A spindly drone glided in, harvesting her remains, scanning the corpse for residual data. The lead alien spoke in its stuttering clicks, failure of subject. Human resilience, exaggerated. Dispose after catalog. The slab went dark. The Xyrr filed away their notes. Another experiment concluded. Minutes passed. 5, 10. The chamber was quiet, save for the whisper of machinery. The corpse of the girl lay still, eyes half-lidded, chest unmoving. 20 minutes. 30. Then, at 37 minutes, Elena's fingers twitched. A convulsion ran through her body. Her chest heaved, pulling in a ragged breath. Her eyes flew open. She screamed, not in pain this time, but in raw animal shock. The Xyrr spun in disbelief. Their instruments blared warnings. Vital signs surged back online. The impossible had occurred. The human had returned. Elena gasped, clutching at air, her body trembling violently. She should have been brain-dead, organs shredded, nerves ruined. Instead, she felt a strange fire coursing through her veins. Not healing, not exactly, but renewal. Like her cells had rewritten themselves in the dark and clawed their way back to life. She stared at the aliens, wide-eyed, panting. You didn't kill me." Her voice was hoarse, broken, but alive. The aliens did not answer. They only watched. Elena's fear mixed with something else, defiance. She had died. She knew that. And yet she stood again, spitting in the face of death itself. "Guess you're not as scary as you think," she whispered, a ghost of a grin tugging at her lips. The lead Xyrr recoiled as if struck. This was not how prey behaved. For the first time, the aliens hesitated. And Elena Ruiz, bound on the slab, realized that whatever had happened to her, whatever miracle or curse had dragged her back, she was no longer just a prisoner. She was something else. Something the Xyrr had no idea how to control. The resurrection paradox. The aliens didn't dispose of her body a second time. They strapped Elena back to the slab with trembling hands and silent confusion. None of the Xyrr spoke aloud, Their black, faceted eyes darted between instruments, reading the streams of impossible data. The human was dead, then alive, then stronger. The pattern made no sense. Elena knew none of this. All she knew was the way her heart hammered in her chest, the taste of copper on her tongue, and the strange way her vision seemed sharper now, every edge glowing faintly as if the world had been painted twice. She felt pain, yes, but layered under it was something new, awareness, alertness. She whispered to herself, "I came back. 37 minutes. Why?" The answer didn't matter to the Xyrr. To them, she was now the most valuable specimen they had ever seen. The experiments resumed. This time, they did not hesitate to kill her. They injected her with paralytics until her lungs froze. They sliced her open with humming blades. They burned her brain with another psychic storm until the world turned black. And every time, Elena returned. Not instantly. Not quickly. Always the same, 37 minutes of nothing, then a violent lurch, a gasp of air, a rebirth. By the third return, Elena noticed something terrifying. Each resurrection left her not weaker, but stronger. She could hold her breath longer. She could endure more pain before breaking. Even the psychic pulses that once tore her mind apart now stung less, as if her brain had rewired itself. The Xyrr noticed too. Their quiet panic deepened. Their instruments recorded accelerated adaptation, neurological hardening, cellular restructuring. No other species in the archives of the Dominion had ever displayed such a phenomenon. "Specimen unstable," one of them hissed in its static-like voice. "Specimen evolving." Elena laughed, and it startled even herself. It was a raw, humorless sound, the kind you make when everything is already lost. "You can kill me," she rasped, "but I'll see you in 37. The aliens froze. They had never heard a prisoner mock them before. Victims begged, wept, collapsed. This one laughed. This one taunted. From then on, Elena used the phrase every time she felt herself slipping toward death. When they drowned her in chemical fire, when they suffocated her with vacuum simulators, when her spine snapped under their machines, she whispered it. "See you in 37. The words became a weapon sharper than any blade. Something shifted in the chamber. The Xyrr, creatures who had broken thousands of species across hundreds of worlds, began to falter. Their movements became hesitant. Their eyes darted, uncertain. They started to fear her. Elena felt it. She clung to it like a rope in the dark. Between deaths, she began testing herself. Small movements at first, flexing fingers against restraints, memorizing the placement of alien tools, noticing patterns in their behavior. She discovered that with each resurrection she not only healed but carried fragments of memory from the psychic intrusions, glimpses of alien thoughts, symbols she didn't understand yet but recognized. She was learning their language without meaning to. Her fear did not vanish. It lurked in her chest like a second heartbeat. But layered atop it was something fiercer. Defiance. She remembered stories her grandmother told when she was young, myths of the Phoenix, of Lazarus, of warriors who refused to fall even when outnumbered. Humanity had always told stories of impossible survival. Maybe those stories weren't just fantasy. Maybe they were prophecy. By the seventh resurrection, the Xyrr scientists argued among themselves. She could feel it in the way they clicked and hissed at one another. Half wanted to dissect her completely and end the paradox before it spread. The other half wanted to study her forever, to understand why a human body could break every law they knew. And in that hesitation, Elena saw her chance. She tested her voice again, her lips cracked but steady. "You think you own me," she said. "But I'm not your experiment. I'm your mistake." One alien recoiled, mandibles flexing in unease. Another slammed its claw down on the controls as if to silence her. They didn't understand. Her words weren't for them. They were for herself. To remind her that she wasn't just enduring. She was becoming. Elena Ruiz had died a dozen times. And each time, death taught her something new. She was no longer just surviving the torture. She was preparing. The escape. Elena counted her deaths like steps on a staircase. 12. 13. 14. Each one carved away fear and replaced it with something harder, sharper. She was no longer a girl strapped to a slab. She was a blade being forged in fire. The aliens didn't see it. Or maybe they did and couldn't admit it. The Xyrr had never imagined prey could turn the hunt back on them. On her 15th resurrection, Elena opened her eyes with a plan. The restraints clicked shut automatically, as always. The room was quiet except for the drone of alien machinery. The scientists leaned over their consoles, their faceted eyes unreadable, their claws tapping controls. Elena flexed her fingers. She had learned how far she could push against the restraints before alarms triggered. She tested the limits each cycle, memorizing the tension. Today, she pressed just a little harder. The band at her right wrist groaned. None of the Xyrr looked up. They thought she was still just a test subject. A drone hovered closer, holding an injector needle. Elena watched the way its metal appendage clamped around the vial. The machine had no idea she was watching, studying, memorizing every motion. The needle jabbed her arm. A wave of fire spread through her veins. Her vision swam. She let her body convulse, the way they expected. She let her breath shudder, her eyes roll. She faked weakness. Inside, she counted. 1 minute. The chemical always hit hardest at the third. That was when her body felt weakest. That was when they stopped watching closely, certain she would die again. At that moment, Elena twisted her wrist with everything she had. The restraint cracked, not much, but enough to slip her hand through if she dislocated her thumb. Pain ripped through her arm, but pain was old news. She pushed, gritted her teeth, and felt the bone pop. Her hand slid free. The alarm didn't trigger. She lunged. The drone had no time to react before she ripped the injector from its clamp and drove the needle deep into its central eye. Sparks exploded. The machine crashed to the ground in a hiss of smoke. The aliens turned, their mandibles flaring in shock. For the first time, Elena saw fear on their faces. She didn't wait. She jammed the sparking remains of the drone into the console beside her, frying the circuits. The restraints on her ankles and chest snapped loose as the system overloaded. She stumbled free, body shaking but alive. One of the Xyrr shrieked, rushing toward her with claws raised. Instinct surged. Elena snatched a shard of broken alloy from the floor and slashed upward. The creature staggered back, black ichor spilling from its throat. She didn't stop to watch it die. She ran. The corridor outside stank of antiseptic and ozone. Lights pulsed along the ceiling in alien rhythms. Her bare feet slapped against the cold deck as she sprinted, heart hammering. Every corner could hold another scientist, another guard. She needed a weapon. She needed allies. Then she heard it, faint cries, not in Xyrr static but in other voices. Prisoners. Elena skidded to a stop at a barred doorway. Inside, half a dozen beings huddled, scaled, feathered, furred, all beaten and broken. Their eyes widened when they saw her. A human. Alive. "Stand back," Elena whispered. She grabbed a control panel and slammed the injector shard into the circuits. Sparks burst, and the lock fell open with a hiss. The prisoners stared at her as if she were a myth. One, a tall, gray-skinned being with a ridge of horns, whispered in halting words, "You returned." They said, "You do not die." Elena almost laughed. She didn't feel like a savior. She felt like a cornered rat with one trick too many. But their eyes burned with desperate hope, and she couldn't let that die. "They're scared of me," she said, breath ragged. "And if they're scared of me, they'll be scared of all of us. We can fight." The prisoners looked at one another. Slowly, one by one, they stood. The Xyrr ship echoed with alarm sirens now, wailing through the halls. Guards would come soon. Elena tightened her grip on the shard of metal. Her thumb still throbbed where she'd dislocated it. Her body still screamed from the poison, but none of it mattered. She had died 15 times. She had risen 15 times. And now, for the first time, she wasn't going to die on their table. She was going to kill them on her feet. The 37-minute war. The alarms of the Xyrr ship howled like a living thing. Red light pulsed along the corridors, splashing over alien metal and the faces of terrified prisoners. Elena led them forward, shard of steel clenched in her hand, bare feet pounding against the deck. Every nerve in her body ached, but she welcomed the pain. It kept her sharp, kept her alive. Behind her, the freed captives followed. They were weak, half-starved, but the sight of the human girl striding ahead filled them with something they hadn't felt in years: hope. The first Xyrr guards met them at the junction. Insectal, armored, claws flexing, weapons raised. They expected an easy slaughter. Elena didn't give them time to fire. She charged, screaming, a sound raw enough to make even the prisoners flinch. She slammed into the first guard, driving her shard into the gap under its jaw. Black fluid sprayed across her arms. The creature collapsed. The prisoners surged after her, grabbing weapons from fallen guards, striking with desperation. It was chaos, but chaos favored the desperate. Elena fought like a storm. She felt the alien rifle burn through her chest once, felt herself collapse to the ground as blood pooled. Darkness swallowed her. Then, 37 minutes later, she gasped awake in the middle of the carnage. Her body had reknit itself, stronger, faster. She staggered upright, wounds closing as if they had never been. The prisoners froze, staring. "She cannot die," one whispered, voice shaking with awe. The guards froze too. Even the Dominion, who thrived on domination, had no answer for prey that refused to stay down. Elena raised the rifle she'd taken from a corpse and leveled it at the nearest alien. "You should have left me dead." She pulled the trigger. From that moment, the ship belonged to her. The battle raged across corridors and chambers. Every time the aliens thought they had her cornered, Elena fell and rose again. Sometimes she lasted 10 minutes, sometimes 20, but always 37 minutes later she came back. And every time she came back, the prisoners fought harder. By the time they reached the command deck, the Xyrr were broken things. They no longer advanced. They recoiled. Their static voices trembled with a word Elena didn't understand but recognized from their minds: demon. She kicked the door to the bridge open and strode in, dripping with blood, eyes burning. The commander of the vessel stood at the center, taller than the rest, clad in layered chitin. It raised a weapon that glowed with energy. Elena didn't flinch. "Pull the trigger," she said, voice hoarse. "I'll be back before you reload." The commander hesitated. And in that hesitation, the prisoners swarmed him. The bridge became a storm of claws, steel, and fury. When it ended, the commander lay broken on the deck. The ship was theirs. Elena slumped into the command chair, breath ragged. She didn't feel like a victor. She felt like a survivor running on spite and stubbornness. But the eyes of every freed captive were on her, waiting for her to speak. She swallowed hard. "I'm not special," she said, though she knew it was half a lie. "I'm human. And where I come from, we don't stay broken. We don't stay down. You can burn us, drown us, tear us apart, but we get back up. Every time." Her voice grew steadier. "The Dominion thinks they own this galaxy. They think fear is enough to chain everyone. They're wrong. I was one girl, one prisoner, and I just proved they can bleed." Silence filled the bridge. Then, one by one, the captives bowed their heads. Not in submission, but in respect. Elena turned toward the comm panel. She didn't know if anyone would hear. Maybe the signal would vanish into the void. Maybe Earth was too far away. She broadcast anyway. "This is Elena Ruiz of Earth. To anyone listening, human or not, know this: we do not surrender. We do not break. And if you kill us, we'll see you in 37. She ended the transmission. For a long moment, the ship was quiet, save for the hum of engines. Then one of the prisoners, the horned one she'd freed first, spoke softly. "You've started something. They will fear humans now. And the rest of us, we will follow." Elena looked out the viewport at the endless stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there was the Dominion, regrouping, preparing. She didn't know what she had become. She only knew one thing: humanity had just been noticed. And the galaxy would never forget.